amazing product. So the introduction of the company, it's Mezcal Agua Santa road, one road that has built with patience and a lot of perseverance. Because after hearing to my story, you might think that creating a company is something about disaster, which is not. There is a saying in Mexico that everyone talks the tale depending on how the experience was. So that's what I like this phrase very much. Everyone's views are colored by their own experience. Meaning that not because my experience was as rocky and as difficult, it means that it's going to be for all of you that want to create a business or want to embark into the industry of alcohol. So this is my agenda for tonight, my background, why I changed my background, why Mezcal, why Oaxaca, all the hassle of working with this company, but also all the dazzle of Agua Santa. So my professional background, I'm from Mexico City. I did international business. I work in Mexico doing importations with China, but I'm also a ballerina. I did classic dancing. So when I moved to Montreal, I decided to do a master's in finance because I thought that I needed to have more experience into the number part of the industry, which I ended up hating because working in finance didn't give me the chance to dance. And I wanted to find a career, a professional career that will allow me to keep dancing and doing something that I was happy about it. So why the change is pretty much for me to give an opportunity for my dancing. Although I was not dancing in a company anymore, I wanted to have my time, to keep doing my passion. But also my big inspiration was my mom. My mom, she was very poor growing up. She couldn't afford a doll. In fact, a doll for her was a Coca-Cola bottle with, a couple of props. But this woman that you see in this picture, she built herself an empire by her own. She's a chef. She studied cooking lessons later on in her life when we were old. We were like probably 40 years old, my sister and I. And little by little, she started to open up restaurants in Mexico. And I'm not saying by any means that she's the most powerful woman in Mexico, but at least to me, she's the most powerful woman in my life. I always have a big attachment to Mexico. Every time I was living in Canada, I will go every 3 months to Mexico because for those of you that have ever been in Mexico, it's really difficult to let it go. It's a beautiful country with beautiful and kind people. We have an amazing weather, an amazing food. And so I didn't want to just, I was not ready to cut the ties with Mexico. So to me, to create something that was allowing me to go back to my country was really important. Giving back to my country has given me so much to me that I had the feeling to give back. And also play by my own rules, meaning that I was really a really bad employee at corporations. So I really need to do something by my own that I could dictate my own time and my own rules. Oaxaca. When I was deciding to think about giving back to this idea to my country, I turned to see, I was driving one day and I heard on the radio that the second poorest state in Mexico was Oaxaca, which it didn't make sense to me. The reason why it didn't make sense to me that Oaxaca was the second poorest state in Mexico is that Oaxaca has so much to give. They're amazing on textiles, they're amazing in artisanal sculptures like clay, alebrijes. They have the best coffee of the region, the best mezcal. So it didn't make sense to me that how come a state in Mexico that produces so much is still being so impoverished. These are like some facts from ports in Mexico. 67% of the population is poor, having almost 3 million people, the poorest in Mexico, and extreme poverty, 1 million people. So to me, that doesn't make any sense. So how I narrowed it down to Mezcal is because by traveling in Mezcal and getting lost, in Oaxaca, I was getting lost. I called one of my really good friends that grew up with me. He was my neighbor, and he was living in the time in Oaxaca, and I said, you know, I think I wanna start doing something for Mexico, for Oaxaca. And he said, there's so much opportunities. And I said, you know what, I think Mezcal is the business to do, at least in Canada, because no one knows Mezcal. I started this business, by the way, in 2014. I was living in Montreal. No one knew. There was only one brand in Montreal that I'm not gonna say it. And I said, it's so easy. Let's do Mezcal. And my friend was like, perfect, and it's so cheap. By the time we started the business, the liter of Mezcal was by the cent of Mexican pesos. Now it's by the 1,000. So we said, yeah, let's do it. So we grabbed our little car that we rented in the airport, drove around Oaxaca, got lost, and found the producer. And so we said, perfect. We reached the top of the mountain, getting lost, couldn't find our way back, and we saw a tiny river that was going down the hill, and the region was called Agua Santa. And we said, we have to call this product Agua Santa. This is the product. In the way back to reality, after getting lost and naming our product without having any paperwork, we found out how complicated it was. So on Toplack Mark, yes. For those who you don't know how to bring a product into reality, for Mexican rules, you have to go to the trademark office. Once that you have the trademark, everything is smoother. But even if a comma is wrong in your paperwork, it's gonna take from 6 to 8 months for the government to tell you. It's not like Canada. In Canada, you can grab your phone, contact CRA, CBSA, and they will give you an answer. In Mexico, you have to wait until the Mexican Post gives you a notification, either if it's correct or if it's wrong. My mistake was that we have an extra comma. That was my mistake. I'm not lying to you, but I had an extra comma. It took about 8 months for them to tell me that I had an extra comma. I fixed it, but by the time I fixed it, my business partner didn't want to keep going on with Mezcal because it was taking too long. But having that change, in Mexico we have, same as Canada, we have the partnership, the corporation, the sole proprietorship. So by the time I turned, I said, okay, you want to be out of the business, I understand, it's fair. But if I start doing the business by my own, I have to change all the paperwork with the notary, with the government, and again I have to wait from 6 to 8 months. Had to do it, brought my dad in, because I needed to have another partner for the Mexican legislation. Took another 8 months, so now we're talking about 2.5 years. And so when we were ready to sign the paperwork with the producer, with the trademark office, in small letters, I read in the contract that it was said, you have to pay a tax of 165%. And this tax is only paid in Mexico. To me, I was like, I'm trying to bring a product to Canada that is quality with a fair price. With this, paying this 165%, it's crazy. It's gonna be super expensive. It's gonna be as expensive as a whiskey or a scotch bottle into the LCBO.
Is that on the finished product?
It's on the, yes, it's by law to every single product in Mexico. But so that's really interesting. That special tax is called IEPS. It's called special taxes for products. So it's only taxable cigars, alcohol, and gas that pay that much percentage. And the only reason why I needed to pay that tax is because my company was from Mexico. If my company had been Canadian, I didn't have to pay the tax. So guess what? I have to create a new business. So I closed the one from Mexico and I created one for Canada. So another 6 to 8 months to wait. When I was finally about to get the approval from the Mexican government, the government sent me a letter saying that my company was fake in Canada. And I said, what do you mean it's fake? I have the paperwork and I sent it to you. And they said no. Because in Mexico, when you create a company, it's this thick, it's a Bible. And it's pages and it's like so old school. So I called to the officer in Mexico and I said, no, this company is for real. And he said like, yeah, but the certification, it comes from a printer. It's like, yeah, because that's how you create a company in Canada. You don't need to have a notary to do that. Well, they asked me to go to a notary to my embassy here in Canada, to the Mexican embassy, to certify. That took another 3 months. I needed to take that paperwork to the trademark office again. And so they finally said, okay, so now we have to revise what's your status, because you are still Mexican, but you have a permanent resident, but you are not Canadian. So my case got more complicated. I was about to give up. And so by the time I was about to give up, I had waited now 4 years for just a trademark. And I kept thinking, like, if the trademark is taking so long, what's going to happen with my export license, with the license between the contract between the producer and myself? So this is crazy. So not almost, I was crying with my mom, and my mom said, don't give up. Marrón, Lopez, we are not quitters. And I said to my mom, teach me how, can you do it better? And she said, go back to Canada and fix it. And I said, how are you going to fix it? I had to wait for 4 years, you're not going to fix it in one day. Well, I was shut up when my mom fixed it within 4 days. So what my mom did, and I think it's something that I should have done, play by the rules in Mexico. I have probably lived too long in Canada that I was, trying to be patiently waiting in sitting down, but I never took more action than I should have. My mom went to the trademark office, befriended the personal assistant of the main guy who signs all the license. She pretty much self-pity of my story to the assistant. Once that was done, she said, put up your daughter. She has gone through a lot. Let me help you out. So my mom that night texted me, like, you're gonna have your license in 4 days. I was like, what? 4 days? I've been waiting for 4 years. I don't know. She granted my license in 4 days. And as a mom said, but like, please don't tell me that you were corrupt. And it's like, not at all. I only took chilaquiles to her. I was like, she did. So after that, we needed to wait for 2 more contracts that they needed to be under the trademark office in Mexico. My mom, takes me to this slide. My mom, are you familiar with chiles en nogada? No? So I'm just getting a little bit away from my conversation. Chiles en nogada, a typical dish in Mexico, only in September, represents the symbolism of Maximiliano and Carlota of Spain, when they were the last emperors in Mexico. Carlota wanted to leave a legacy, and she brought all European ingredients, but wanted to have a dish that had the colors of the flag with the European ingredients. So my mom did, by the way, this is very popular in Mexico, and it's like, because it's only once a year that people can eat it, it's like super popular. So my mom cooked that, and she took it to the personal assistant of the main guy. And she's like, oh, this is my token of appreciation. Thank you so much for helping me, and can you now help me with the other paperwork? But guess what? That day, it was the earthquake that happened 2 years ago. And all the building was evacuated. My paperwork got lost, my license, because people were running. The building in front of the trademark office fell down, so people were stuck in the parking lot, like they couldn't move. They had to wait until that happened around 1 p.m. and people were at 8 p.m. still trying to get out of, going back to their places, to their homes. And the only thing that this lady remembered was that everyone was so hungry. And so when they finally were able to go back to pick up their stuff and go back home, she grabbed the chiles en nogada and started, because everyone was hungry and all the restaurants were shut down. And next day she said, I don't know what is your paperwork, but I promise your mom fed me, I need to help you. So nothing that I'm being grateful with the earthquake, but it's just like, that's how Mexico works, you know, like it's not so much about giving, you know, slipping the bill onto the table, because that doesn't work. It might work in the short term, but being kind and being genuine with your people, it's what impacts the most. Gonna go back. So yes, I was working with all my trademarks, but so you might think, what were you doing in Canada? In the meantime, in the 4 years that I was sitting down for my government to expedite the process, I was waiting for my Canadian side of applying to different liquor boards. I applied to the one in Ontario, the one in Nova Scotia, the one in Alberta. And they were pretty straightforward. If you follow and if you read all the paperwork, it's easy. The problem is, I didn't have the product. I couldn't get the product to show to my clients. It was a difficult moment for me because on one hand, I had the product in Mexico, but I don't have a license. And I cannot, without a license, I cannot take the product, even for the samples. Canada is so bureaucratic in one sense that if you need to take the product for sampling, it has to go through every liquor control board. But you know what, I was desperate. So I filled 2 suitcases with mezcal from Oaxaca. And during the summer, I was knocking doors, presenting my mezcal. Maybe I'm not saying that do it because it's illegal, but you have to be creative. And I think the industry understands that. Parenthesis, at the Toronto Cocktail Conference, when I signed up last year, my backpack was full of mezcal. In between sessions, I was sampling people. But I just didn't want to know people, and I was hungry, and I knew that I had an amazing product, and I just wanted to give you trust, and you know, like that you guys trust me back, because I knew that was coming. I didn't know exactly when, but being patient and again persevere makes it at the end. So I told you that I was waiting here in Mexico, but in Canada, in Alberta, it was my first market. I think that was the easiest kind of liquor control that I was dealing with, because Alberta is more private. You don't have to wait for the government to say yes or no. This picture that is called 9, my husband and I, we were presenting. I was presenting store to store the mezcal, and we were just waiting for the flight. And my husband was like, you know what? Let's present it to the airport. And he talked to the people from the airport, and I'm finally listed there. So I'm telling you this story is because don't wait for the clients to come to you. You have to go there and knock the doors. So the dazzle of Agua Santa is that by believing on myself, people believe on myself as well. Like whatever I transmit, people will get it back. I'm always honest. I'm not selling. What can I say? I'm not selling a scotch that is $120. It's mezcal, but even with the mezcal, I'm always honest in the sense that it's a handcraft spirit. It takes a lot of work, and we have to respect that. So when people ask me to bargain the price, I get really offended. Not so much because of my work, but because of the producer's work. And I have had a lot of bars in Toronto asking me a reduction of the price, and my mezcal is cheap already because I don't have a distributor, I'm the distributor itself. But that's why I'm honest, and I think people appreciate that. And also, I understand my partners. I understand the licensees. I have French licensees that they're not gonna sell, 1 case of mezcal. So it's okay if you wanna buy only 1 bottle. Part of the education that I've done is trade shows, mostly in Alberta because it's more accessible. Door to door. At the beginning, when I started doing door to door, people were laughing about me. They said, "Oh my God, this is so old school." But guess what? You have to do it door to door because this is Canada. If you were living in Europe, maybe things would be easier, but no. And this is the best way to access the bars. And I'm not ashamed of that. I'm actually very happy to keep having a backpack full of mezcal. And inviting participants, well, that's my dad. My dad is always with me. People love because my dad is like typical Mexican with a mustache, big belly. He has a really broken English, so people love that more. I don't know why. That was in the show last year in Alberta. He was trying to explain how the mezcal was being elaborated, and the person was asking how much was the bottle, and my dad was like going on, and I was like, no, Dad, he's asking how much is the bottle. But people love that, I think. Being in this business has been a super roller coaster. The highs are very high for me. I'm happy when people are buying my mezcal, when they give me good feedback, but it's also a very downer. When people forget to pay me, they don't understand that I'm a small business. They don't understand all the work that I have done. I'm not a big distributor, and I don't want to be. I just want to be like focused on what I'm doing. But it's, you know, high and lows, and I think every career and every business is like that. But how to fight with the lows, with the downers? Well, have webs. Testicles, have purpose and determination. That's the only solution I find. And my final takeaway from this is always look into the front mirror, never in the rear window. Thank you so much, and if you have any questions, let me know. Thank you.
I have some questions.
Please.
Did you have, when you're going through the process with the trademark office, did you ever use a lawyer to help you through filling out that paperwork?
At the very end, and the reason why is that mezcal is a very ancient drink that was only consumed by the local poor people. When it started to be exported by a group of Americans, the government didn't pay attention on that, so it was pretty easy to take it out of the country. The more and more they were getting, the mezcal was getting outside of Mexico, the government was like, an extra income. So they started to set up policies, more guidelines, and they started to make it more difficult. What happened was that a private person, in the meantime that the mezcal was getting popular, this person started to gather all the information to the point that he created an organization that is private. It's called the Regulatory Chamber of Mezcal, and he gives you all the information, but you have to pay. So when I approached to my lawyer, she said, well, before the information was for free, so now you have to pay for this information. So not only you are paying for a lawyer, but you are also paying for the, and it gets very expensive. And also, not many people know mezcal, so it's a very specific and niche kind of person. And why I don't use it as much is because every time that she has to deal with the organization in Mexico, the trademarks, you have to pay all her expenses, her traveling, her hotels, and being like small person, I didn't have the budget for that.
And I have a follow-up. You said you're your own distributor.
Yes.
Why not use, obviously you have to pay distributors, but why not use distributors to get a wider penetration in whatever markets you're going into?
Maybe in the future. Right now I don't want it because I want them to be fair in the pricing. I wanted to give an accessible price. Mezcal in Toronto, you guys in the industry, you know it. But I want mezcal to be known by your parents. And if your parents go to the CPO, they're not going to buy a bottle that is $90. Why would they buy a mezcal that they don't know, and instead of a really good bottle of scotch? touch or are really good. So my entry price is fair because I don't have a distributor and because I want to get more people. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm wrong. Who knows?
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, mezcals, you know, in a lot of markets, Quebec especially, like they're just getting into tequilas. I mean, they're so far behind.
In Mezcal, in Quebec, they have about 15 brands. I went last week to their SAQ, like the big ones that distribute the licenses. It's crazy the number of brands that they have.
When you go to bars, there's no bars don't carry it.
No.
They don't seem to carry it. You know, there's like a new in Old Montreal. There's a new mezcal speakeasy, which is cool. But lots of the big bars just carry a handful of tequilas, and that's it. So good for you.
Gosh.
How did you find your distributors, or your farmers in the Palenques?
By getting lost. Remember the beginning of the conversation? I took my car, I rented a car, we were driving around. I actually, when I started the first way to work with the contracts, I had one producer. My idea was to help people, to help producers, those producers that they didn't have internet or they didn't even speak English, to help them. The problem with that is that I'm not gonna say they were lazy. It's just that they have so ingrained the culture that they don't wanna change the things. And the more you try to say, if you let me help you according to the law, we're gonna take this product, you know, more than beyond. And they don't wanna do it. And it's fair, I understand why they don't wanna do it, because they don't wanna change the recipe. It's because one day, mezcal was, it's like cake. Everyone can do chocolate cake, and it's gonna taste different. But if you have an imposing chamber of cake that tells you that it has to be this way, people wouldn't like it. So that's what happened with those small producers, that they didn't want to get imposed into how to make the mezcal. So I thought that I was like not, you know, moving on, moved to another guy that his dad was an agronomist, and he was the first person who brought the distillation of copper. And I said, this is perfect because they know. But the first time that I said, okay, I'm gonna be moving to 3 different provinces, I think they saw on my face dollar value. And from the moment that we agreed on signing for the price, he jacked the price 3 times more. And I said, how come? It's like, oh, it's because it's Canada and it needs to pass certain exams. And it's like, yeah, but I told you that a year ago. So I have to go back. The second time that I went, then I drove the car. I went to Liam, and that was probably the most fascinating experience, because I don't know if you remember that in Mexico we have the political instability in Oaxaca. There was the professors that were claiming that they didn't have the compensation, so there was like a lot of manifestations. And on the other side, it was also Pemex, because the petroleum was getting privatized. So the whole Oaxaca, the whole industry shut down. All the highways were blocked, and we kept just driving around, and we couldn't leave Mexico, Oaxaca City. We couldn't approach to anywhere because all the highways were banned. When we finally, after, I'm not lying, 6 hours of just driving around Oaxaca City, we were able to get out. I said, you know, I need to go to the washroom. So we stopped in a gas station, and a guy with a big gun said, what's your business here? I was like, I actually need to pee. And he said, okay, just go and get out. So I was like, okay, so I don't think I'm gonna have time to just drive around and look for a producer, because things are getting serious. On and off, an hour after, I found the producer. I think it was just because I was distracted.
But so you actually spent time just like driving around being like, that looks like they might make mezcal.
Yeah, driving around, and I'll say, do you sell by volume? Are you certified? You have to ask the question. And they'll say, no, but my compadre does. And drive 2 more blocks, and like that.
How open were they to you changing their chocolate cake recipe?
Some of them, they said, yes, I'll do it. But you have to be careful with Mexicans when they send you to it, and sometimes they just want to, you know, say yes, but they might not have the ability or the capabilities. To me, how I ended up deciding to go with a person that was already certified is that the first thing that I will ask is, do you have internet? Because imagine if I have a product that is going to be export, and if I'm dealing with the LCBO that is complicated enough, dealing with something that they don't have the infrastructure is really complicated. It complicates more. Yeah.
And what do you know, not being an expert in mezcal before you found these producers, are you talking to them about changes in the fermentation process or the distilling or
no,
the actual raw
I'm really
ingredients?
happy with the quality. What I want to do is, because many people have asked me, is to do the distillation on clay. This is distillation on copper. Clay is, so there are three kinds of mezcal. It's ancestral, artisanal, and industrial. The ancestral is everything is handcrafted, and when you do the distillation is on clay. Why I don't bring clay is because when I tested it on the LCBO, it doesn't pass the laboratory testing. That's why it comes on copper, because copper kills all the metals. So that's called artisanal mezcal. And industrial, everything is in machines.
What was the third?
Ancestral on clay, artisanal on copper, and industrial.
Industrial.
You want to take us through the tasting notes? on the actual
Absolutely,
product?
that's the most fun part. So, how it's been made. It takes 7 years. Okay, hold on. Before I do that, I want to ask you a question. Can anyone tell me 2 differences between mezcal and tequila? Okay.
Well, one is the tequila is the Blue Weber agave, and mezcal could be any agaves.
Right.
Second is tequila is aged in barrels. The age of mezcal is determined by the age of the plant, I've heard, and then the smoke, and usually it's cooked underground to give it its smokiness versus baked in ovens.
Perfect. You won a bag. Yay. I put it back for sure.
But the second one I wasn't right about.
No, you were right. So with mezcal,
Thanks.
yes, indeed, you can grow any other plant. That blue agave is only for tequila, and any other species of agaves are for mezcal. And the production, how it is made, is that we cut the plant when it's ready, when it reaches the 7 to 10 years of maturity. How the producer knows that if the plant is ready to get farmed is that you have the big plant, and in the plant it has a big kind of like asparagus. That's called agave capote. So when the agave capote, depending on the density, on the color, and on the height, the harvester is gonna know when is the right time to cut it. So they will cut the big asparagus and they will plant it back. But by the way, parenthesis, this is only for farm agaves, because there are farm agaves and white agaves, but I will explain later. So once that is planted, they're gonna start shaping the agave, and we're gonna have a piña. They will cut the piña in many sections because these piñas can weigh up to 100, 120 kilos. So they're very heavy to transport. They will take it to the production zone. In the production, we have a huge hall. Hold on, I'm gonna show you pictures because it's gonna be faster if I show you. I'm sorry. Okay. Okay, so the big hole It's like this. I'm sorry if you can see. Let me see. Full windows, full screen. So you see, this is an artisanal oven. So it's a huge deep hole under the ground, and they will cover it with volcanic stones. They're gonna dump oak and pine. Once that they start let it on fire the wood, they're gonna dump the piñas. After the piñas, we're gonna cover it with sacks and soil. Why we cover it with soil is because we're gonna prevent the oxygen to burn the cooking process. So we're gonna cook it for 4 to 5 days, depending on the recipe from the producer. Then we have the grinding. Most of you know that it's pulled by a horse. And so there is a horse just going around the mill and it's gonna smash the product. This is just to activate the juices. We're gonna ferment it. The fermentation is really important because we have a specific kind of wood in Mexico that is called sabino. I Google translate the sabino into sabine, but I don't think that works. Why sabino is really important is because sabino is one of the very few species that grows the yeast. So it's a natural yeast. We don't add any yeast into the fermentation. So we're gonna dump all the grinded plants at the water and wait from 5 to 7 days. It's opener fermented. Why it's important to have opener fermented? Because, for example, this batch you're gonna try, it's from the summer. In the region, we grow a lot of citrus. We grow guavas, limes, lemons. If I have done this in the fall, it will taste more herbal because of the avocado leaves. It's really interesting. After that, we have the 2 distillations on copper, and this is more technical specifications. On the first distillation, we're going to have about 30 alcohol degree. On the second one, 60. We don't drink the first one because it's very high on methanol, and you can get blind if you drink that. And then we have the final product. So how I tell people that they are not familiar with mezcal, how you try it, but you are experts, just have a first sip, excel. Why? Because if you're not familiar with alcohol or agave spirits, there are a lot of metals, so you have to excel on the first sip. Then on the second sip, you're gonna start tasting the smokiness, the fruity, and also that is not, it's not too oaky because it's really smooth. It's very smooth, as you can see. It's nothing that is gonna burn you. And it's also like producers have this understanding that it's like perfume. Like if you put it like on your skin and if it keeps smelling, it's like a good perfume. So it's like, it's good. And I hope you like it.
Another good one as well is if you put your finger in and move it around, it feels very oily.
Yeah.
No, it's a good way to taste it without tasting it.
So I have another question for you guys. Can anyone tell me 3 different species that is not blue agave and that is not espadín? Yes, yes, yes.
Terestate, Matracuche y Baril.
Arauqueño.
Arauqueño?
Yeah, escúchale, bueno, okay. You got it back.
Thank you.
Now, last question. Maybe I'm just gonna be, it's gonna be too easy. What does Agua Santa mean? You're not allowed to say it. Yes, yes, you know.
Holy water?
Yes.
I can't come up.
So you're drinking holy water, people.
Alright, I've got a list of questions for you.
Okay.
So you were driving around, you went to a bunch of different palenques. Some of them you found, some of them probably you were scheduled to meet.
Yes.
How many did you go to?
Oof, I think I went over 100. What?
Carmen, that's too many.
No, but I'm telling you that I went probably 6 times to Oaxaca. And
Over what period?
over the period of maybe 2 years. Because remember, on the first year, I had an amazing producer that I thought that it was regulated. But then on this, when he said, oh, you know, you have laboratory testing that I have to comply with, and I was like, yeah, right, but like not for a price to be 3 times more expensive. So because I was really getting close to, I thought, to get my trademark, I took the car for the second time, and I was driving to a different region. That's the other thing. I went to the upper valley, to the lower valley, and the farther you get away from the city, the more you're parking. The more complicated it gets to do the exportation. So you have to, for me it was important to be close to at least Santiago Matatlan to get the trucking, because the further away, the more expensive it gets. Like the LCBO doesn't go all the way to the small communities. They don't go to Oaxaca. So for me, I needed to absorb those costs of bringing the product from the remote areas to Mexico City.
Right. So you went to 100 or so over a few years, and you were looking for internet capabilities, of course, and then quality of product.
Quality of
Anything
product.
else? Relationship?
Yes, relationship is important, because I had one guy that, I'm gonna say, he is the producer of Montelobos. One of them, because Montelobos has many producers. And it's a guy in the industry for many generations, but he didn't like to deal with me because I was a woman. And my dad was next to me, and he would direct all the questions to my dad. And I was like, but I'm the first one. And I just felt so disrespected, but it's the culture. So at the end, my dad is like, well, that was amazing. It's like, yeah, for you, but for me, it was very embarrassing. Were you gonna say that?
No, I'm agreeing with you.
And then when you found the right palenque, did you have to give them anything that they didn't have? Did they have everything you were looking for?
Yeah,
Did you have to help them with anything?
It was a common kind of cooperation, because when I knew they have internet and they were eager to grow, so he is the 4th generation of a family. But with his dad, I think his dad didn't want to keep doing mezcal, so the business just kind of like evaporated. So when the kids grew up, they wanted to take back the business, and because it was also the boom of mezcal in Mexico going on. And I said, you know, let's work together. I still have time to take to get my paperwork, my trademark. And he said, I also am in the period of time that I need to get my certification. So we wait each other. And it was so funny, because by the time I got my trademark, he got his certification. And we were so ready to start working, but something happened with his certification, and I needed to wait for 6 months. And I said, you know what? I have waited for years. 6 months is nothing. So we kind of cooperated.
So you knew you wanted to work together.
Yeah.
You were just
Because it's not because he's young, he's the same age as I am, but he understands the needs, he understands, you know, like how to use the technology, he's very flexible. Also, something that I really like about him is that when the earthquake happened, I called him and I said, because Oaxaca was, one of the regions of Oaxaca was very affected, and I said, let's do something. And no flinch said, okay, let's bring resources together, and we drove around and they started giving provisions to those people that they were without a home. So that to me, it was a person that was caring enough, you know, it was not only about the money, but also about, you know, the needs of other people. Yes?
A couple of questions. The LCBO and getting listings at the LCBO, what was that process like?
So right now I'm doing private ordering. So meaning that I need to come bar to bar, get a signature of different bars with different amount of cases. Once that I compile a big amount for me that it makes sense to bring from Mexico, I'll drive it to Mexico City, and LCBO goes from Mexico City and bring it, and I have to go in my small car to pick up the cases. Listing is another process that I'm working with now. The problem with that is that because I'm a small agent, I need to prove to the LCBO at least 500 cases for the first year. Yeah. If I will be with a distributor, although it's a new product, it will be listed as fast. But you know what? There is no rush. I'm sure I'm gonna get listed at some point. I hope next year, not in 10 years.
Should get listed.
Yeah.
Yes. You watching LCBO?
That's what.
Are you working on other expressions of
Yes, I'm bringing Madre Cuiche. Yes, I hope that it's gonna be ready at the end of the summer. Yeah, Madre Cuiche, and it makes this delicious. Don't expect a cheap price.
What is it? Another type of mezcal?
It's another kind of agave, Madre Cuiche.
That's right.
So Madre Cuiche, it's a plant that is kind of like very tall, so it's like a big stem, and it's kind of like chubby and with big leaves. So people, Madre Cuiche, used to, and even today in Oaxaca, they only use it for decoration, on the highway as a fence, and they were not using it for mezcal. So now they're using it for consumption.
Right. What's the with all the varieties of agaves? What is the real difference? Is it just different levels of sugar?
No, there is a lot of difference. So, for example, I can tell you, Madre Cuiche and Cuiche, they come from the same family that are Garwinsky. So, why people call one name to the other is because it depends where it grows. It will be different because of the soil, the climate. You, for example, have Toplack. Toplack, it's like this big and concentrates more sugars. And, or for example, Tepestate. Did you mention Tepestate? Tepestate is amazing because it grows on the cliff of the mountains. So it's the most expensive kind of agave because imagine, like, for people to grow on the cliff, on the slope of the mountains, it's so dangerous. First of all, it's so dangerous to get it, and second, the Tepestate grows on the rock. So it doesn't, the roots, they don't go under the soil, but it get attached to the rocky parts of the mountain. I'm gonna show you a picture. You want to see a picture?
Sure.
I think we were in Mexico last month, and it was really interesting. In the we were with a friend of ours who's global expert in agave, and he was saying how tequila is becoming mezcalinized, and mezcal is becoming tequilaized. In that, like, tequila is really kind of pushing forward terroir, and mezcal is really pushing varietals. And the two are now kind of getting blended together, so that terroir and varietals are becoming like kind of holistically understood a little bit more, which is really quite fascinating.
Mezcal wants to get as popular as tequila, but also mezcal recognizes all the handcraft, like the crafted part of the story. And tequila is also like kind of appreciating, like people now with organic handcraft appreciate that. Going back to your question, these are a couple of different species. So, for example, you have cereal. Cereal grows on dry and very deserted zones. It's very herbal, and it's a Garwinsky. But also you have another Garwinsky that is not pushing. So that's the one that I was telling you that grows on the highway and they use it for decoration. It's very mineral. When you drink it, it's almost like, to me, this is like the trunk. We have Toplack. These are the small ones that contain a lot of sugar because they are small. You have Mexicano. See, Mexicano is similar to Espadrille, but it's thinner. And it's called Rodacanta species. The Tepestate, see? Isn't that fascinating? On the top of the mountain that is growing. I can show you the presentation, don't worry.
Are these all in Oaxaca or in that region? Or are these
No, well,
as
some of them are in Oaxaca, but you can also source agaves in Puebla. So today we have 8 states that have granted the denomination of origin. Before it was only Oaxaca. Now Puebla, Guerrero, Monterrey, and some others that I'm forgetting.
designing bottles, how did you get to there? Once you decided on your product, how did you get to your beautiful bottle? How did you go through that sort of
It was
design
not as
process?
beautiful as it is today. So a friend of mine was a graphic designer, and she was unemployed, and I said, you know, it's a good idea for you, you know, like help me and I help you. But the problem with that is that she's from Brazil, and she designed a aesthetic kind of label with a snake and cactus. And I was like, well, I guess if I'm going to Canada, if that's the image that Canadians think about Mexico, well, I guess I'm going to go with that label. When I was going back to Mexico, my friends were like, why did you want to portray the Speedy Gonzalez image? And I said, yeah, perfect. So I ended up contacting a friend of mine that went to school with me, and he's also a graphic designer, and I said, you understand, we are from Mexico. And I think it's like everything. You might be an amazing designer, but you have to understand the culture. And I think I made a mistake by going to my friend from Brazil, because maybe she didn't understand that we now have cars, we now have color TV.
But more than the label, the actual bottle. How do you get to the bottle? Because,
Oh,
designing a bottle is a very...
Well, I didn't design it. I went to an expo class in Mexico, and that's how I sourced. Yeah.
So, no, go on. Sorry, go on. I've asked a ton of questions.
So like, with everything you went through with Mezcal, obviously Mezcal being less known, less popular than tequila, how would that process essentially just be even more difficult with, say, a Sotol or a Bacanora or a Raicilla or something?
How more difficult it is than...
Yeah.
Okay, so Sotol is the same as Mezcal, it's the same process, but that specific state, they don't want to change it to Mezcal because they want to have their own name, that is Sotol, but it's the same process, just different region. Raicilla is not 100% agave, but it still is similar process. They mix an agave with a fruit, or it's different kind of species, but kind of the same process. But what is really very drastic the difference is how you make Mezcal and how you make tequila. Because tequila has the resources to make it faster. So I was, for example, talking to Johnny and Rachel, and they were explaining to me that you have these machines that they inject pressure to cook out pipes. Right.
I will click on this.
Or include diffusers, yeah.
Yeah, to cook it faster. So
Yeah. Well, you have that does exist in some mezcals, right? Like the
yeah,
diffuser
you have
mezcal.
industrialized mezcales. So that's what I was specifying, that there are three kinds: ancestral, artisanal, and industrial.
And in terms of like the process you went through creating a brand, I imagine, would that also be a harder process to bring something that was even less well known than mezcal into Canada? Right? In terms of so instead of tequila's easy, mezcal's difficult, and then...
To me, it was more difficult, but again, it's my own personal humble opinion, because tequila is very well positioned in Canada. Everyone knows tequila. Not many people know mezcal, and even the few that they know mezcal, it might be from back in the 80s when they were doing backpacking in Mexico, and they were drinking a shot of mezcal with the worm. So on and off, I was in a trade show last year, and people, they were like, this is not authentic, it doesn't come with the worm. And I was like, because it doesn't have the worm, it's authentic. So there is a lot of education needed to be done. Or I have also the people say, I don't want to try it because it's tequila and I have an experience with tequila. It's like, it's not tequila. It tastes different tequila, it's different process. So it's a lot of hard work that needs to be done.
Yeah, but that bad experience was Cuervo, Gold, and Sense
Yeah.
of White.
Yeah.
Even anybody who says that to me, I just say try these 10 varieties of tequila.
And they're amazing, I think.
Yeah, they're just totally different.
So earlier you mentioned about the yeast and in the summertime you do more of the citrusy. So is the production, the fermentation, more of a seasonal endeavor to enhance the flavors from the wild yeast?
Both depend. Depend the region. For example, I can grow the same plant and bring it, if I cook it in Matatlan versus I cook it in San Juan del Rio. In San Juan del Rio, there is not water. It's very desertic, so it's gonna be more smoky. It's gonna be more harsh on the taste. And Santiago Matatlan, there is a lot of water, a lot of fluid, so that also depends on the number of days that you ferment your product. So it depends on the conditions, depends on the area, and even from here to next door. For example, our producer has the facility enclosed. So when you are grinding the product, it's still smoky from the oven that is cooking another batch. So it's always going to be smoky. Versus in front, that there's another producer, they have open kind of facility, open ceiling, and doesn't get smoky because of ozone. Any other questions? You can see the one. Yes.
So what's the plan? What's the plan with Agua Santa? I mean, it's one of the, obviously one of the, I mean, it's a fantastic product, but what's the plan? What's the 5-year plan with the brand? What do you?
I want to be in Canada, across Canada. It's taking me a long time because I'm going door to door, province by province. But I also want to be in Europe. The States, it would be ideal, but they have over 1,000 brands already. So what would they? Who knows? Maybe they will know it.
What about a place like Australia? Trombone started in Australia before they came to Canada.
That I didn't know. Yeah, for sure.
The guy's Canadian who started it.
He's Canadian and Australian.
Was he both?
The other partner is
Oh, the
Australian.
other one's
Yeah,
Australian?
that's why.
Okay.
Yeah.
How interesting.
And they met in Mexico.
Wow.
It's a love story.
Mm.
A business love story.
The best thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, the more the better, for sure.
Thank you. Really,
Well, thank you everyone for having me today. Tani's doing an amazing cocktail, old-fashioned mezcal. It's amazing. You want to try? Huh?
Thanks for having me.
So that's it. If people want to speak with Carmen, I'm sure she will hang around for a bit and be willing to have a chat for a while, and we can make some more wonderful mezcal old fashions and other drinks as well. So thank you all for coming. And we're continuing every week right through till the end of May, at least, with one exception, and that's the week that I'm out of town. So, sorry.
What's next week?
Yeah.
Next week, I'm going to have to let you know. I'm working on it, and I'm getting details, but the details are going to be really, really important, and I don't have them yet.
You mean like top secret important?
Well, it's not as top secret as yes, it's completely top secret and mysterious.
Ah, if you need a fill in, Josh is great at karaoke. You can just go up there and rap.
Well,
for you.
and you know, we're counting on him being here for the karaoke. Absolutely.
It stands.
No, the karaoke will be
Just
wonderful.
got a high five competition.
And a lot of them we have just from the local.